Today's featured sustainable brown girl is Colah B Tawkin, comedian, lifelong nature lover, and host of the Black in the Garden podcast. Using her extensive horticultural knowledge, her endless love for Black people, and her keen ability to teach in a spirit of joy and kinship, she has built a village of soil cousins and is taking up space in the plant industry. We love to see it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Colah.
Thank you for having me, and I love that introduction. I do all those things, so check all those.
Yes, yes. So I always like to start at the beginning. Tell us how your sustainable journey began.
Yes, I love talking about that because I feel like I don't get to talk about it enough. But my sustainability journey began at a young age before I was able to really like practice it. And it specifically came from TV programming. It was propaganda. I was just brainwashed. No, I'm just playing. It was Nickelodeon. I'm a child of the '90s. I'm an '80s baby, and Nickelodeon back in the beginning of their whatever they do, they had this program that would kind of mainly come on between the between the programming and the commercials called The Big Help. And I still remember the theme song was like Big Helper. I don't want to sing it. That's not my ministry. But it was Big Helpers in Action, which I mean, I can't imagine what all went into making that as as impactful as it was because they showed children like doing riverside cleanups, and they talked about how to recycle and how to care about the earth and stuff like that. And so it was very clearly targeting young people in order to plant those seeds to get them to be aware of the impact that they could have on the environment. And I mean, shout out to Nickelodeon for
Hmm.
recognizing that, along with the ability to provide children's programming, they were able to be responsible enough to say, look, it's one thing to just entertain the kids, but what if we could kind of enlighten them and show them ways that they could, grow into responsible citizens as far as stewardship of the earth? And it worked on me. It really did work on me. But like I said, it was something that I learned about, but I didn't feel like I got to really practice it because some of the things that they were discussing, some of the events that they showed the children participating in, I didn't have access to that.
Mm.
And that's just because I'll be specific. It wasn't because I know I could have asked my parents to like take me to go pick up trash somewhere or whatever, but I didn't because I was one of those kids that was like, like whatever we finna do, wherever we going, I'm going. I'm not trying to like ask for more and
Yeah.
ask you to go out of your way for me. I'm not about to ask you to, figure out like how we can get some recycling bins in here if you're not doing that. I was not that kid that was piping up on my parents like that.
Hmm.
So I knew about it, and I definitely was concerned about, that was my introduction to environmentalism. And I'm so grateful for being able to have that awareness as a kid. But I don't want to get ahead of the interview, but unfortunately, the younger you learn, the more the eco anxiety
Oh
kind of
gosh,
builds up.
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So it's that, as well as just having this natural affinity for nature. I wouldn't say that I loved to go outside so much when I was a kid because I didn't truly get it. But the time that I did get to spend outside, I was always able to find a way to appreciate, at the very least, being close to water or the serenity of the forest. I was a very poetic child.
Yeah, I love it. Like you said, that indoctrination as a young child is really helpful because for me, I
Yes.
didn't watch The Big Help, but I did watch Captain Planet. Did you ever
I
see
did
that?
too. Girl,
Yeah.
I live by Captain Planet. I forgot that that was a
Right,
part of my indoctrination. Thank you for bringing that
right.
back up. I'm a Planeteer.
Yes,
We
yes,
Planeteers. Hallelujah.
exactly. Yep, yep.
Wow.
So yeah, having that, just being able to be introduced to that at a young age definitely did have an impact, we can see.
I feel like I'm about to cry, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah.
It really was impactful for me because they were very intentional about how they had Captain Planet be very much like the power is yours. But
Yes.
he said it with his chest. He was like,
Oh, didn't he?
the
The
power
power is
is
yours.
yours. And like you're gonna remember that, you're gonna feel that, and you're gonna believe that. And can we cuss on here?
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
good. Yeah, because I might be a potty mouth sometimes, but I believe that shit. Okay, I believed it, and to this day, I still feel that. And I sometimes I might randomly yell that out. People need
Yes,
to hear that. It was literally empowering.
it was 100%. So
Shout out to
good.
them. Yes, I love
So
being a
good.
planeteer.
So, speaking of Planeteers, tell me how you started your podcast, Black in the Garden.
Okay, yes, let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
How did I start it? It was a combination of things. Um, I always feel like it's like, oh, it's a long story, but it's just there's a lot of elements that came together. There's an
Mm-hmm.
element of my appreciation of broadcasting, my appreciation for podcasts as a naturally curious person who was always like, yo, I want to know more about this, that, or whatever. And even circumstantially, my occupation uh, around 2017 and 18, I was a full time trucker. I was like long haul and stuff like that. And so I
Wow.
had all the time to listen. I listened to thousands of hours of podcasts. And
Yeah.
so I consumed a lot of podcasts, but I had also had a college experience where I dabbled in broadcasting. And when I say that, I just mean I started on that path before I dropped out. and and also a lover of plants. You know, that came about probably about a year before I started trucking. And well, not started, that wasn't my first time, but that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I loved plants, I loved my people. Okay, so those are the two main factors because it is Black in the Garden. But on the other end, as far as the skill set goes and the desire and just kind of having a production producer mindset, all
Mm-hmm.
of that came together as I realized, hey, I want to hear a podcast about gardening that's not super dry and boring. Now, I am not shading any podcast that was out before mine that might have been adjacent to or the white folks or whatever. But one thing that you know that we all know listening is that I'm not just thinking about the podcasts that were emphasizing gardening and plant content. I'm also thinking about like your PBS or whatever your public broadcasting, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and even NPR, and very dry, just very much like, hey, let's talk about science and nature and, you know, gardens or whatever. And there's always a very particular kind of like stereotypical, very calm, soothing
Mm-hmm.
white person and generally an older person. And so the media that was representative of gardening and plant whatever is actually right on par with the representation of gardeners and horticultural professionals in this concept of it being older people, you
Mm-hmm.
know, of a certain background or maybe even class, if you will, and not just older, but white.
Yeah.
And so when they do things, when they produce things, it's, you know, it's catering to that demographic. And that's not me. I am a millennial black woman who likes to turn up, who loves trap and soul and R&B and, you know, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a planeteer, all of that. And I'm like, I get to be all of that. I need that to be a podcast. It's not there. So now I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it.
Yes. Yes. I love
That
your
being said,
podcast so much because
thank you.
well, first of all, you talk to a wide variety of people about a wide variety of topics.
Mhm.
Like I like how even when you have a guest, we're talking about plants and stuff, you're not just talking about that, like you go into all different subjects. And, that's something that I really admire about your podcast is that you can like effortless,
We know words.
effortlessly.
Yes.
You can just weave in so many topics into, one discussion. And, I really appreciate that. Plus, you bring so much humor. Like, I'm
Oh,
always cackling. Like, seriously, it's amazing.
it's working.
Yes, girl.
That's, but see, that's my goal because I've just, I didn't, I wasn't extremely intentional about it, but the longer you do a thing, you
Hmm.
recognize how what it like you get more clear about what it is and what's going on, and it helps you to go forward. And
Hmm.
I just recognized, just hearing you say that I'm very much giving you like the antithesis of what it was that I was hearing, that it just wasn't resonating with me.
Right.
So that's, I need to be clear about that, because I'm like, I don't want to be shady. I don't want to say that that content that wasn't resonating with me didn't have value. It
Right.
certainly does have value. It certainly has helped a lot of people. It just didn't help me, because you got to give me some bass or something like that, or something, lighten it up. Let's have some fun here. Let's get some tambourines. You know, black people love tambourines.
Oh, girl, yes. But you're so right about, the a lot of the gardening sphere has a lot of, not
Seriousness.
people that look like us. Because even at
Yes.
my community garden that I go to, granted, I live in a, mostly white suburb, so it's going to be reflected in the, type of people that come to
Indeed.
the garden. But it
Hmm.
is all, older white people for the most part. So
Yeah.
it's good to have representation in every space.
Very, very much so. And we can really unpack everything that you just said,
Hmm.
if that's a part of your outline for the day. But
Yeah.
as far as the humor part, I've been knew I was a comedian, but there was something about starting this podcast, and especially starting it at the point in my life when I started it, which was pretty much like immediately after separation from my ex-husband, and just stepping into a new identity and being very
Hmm.
intentional about that, and being like, you know
Hmm.
what, I am a comedian. Yes, I'm going to
Hmm.
say that, because there's a huge difference between knowing that you're funny and knowing that you can make people laugh, and actually claiming to be a comedian, because then there's intention behind it. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, no, but we need humor, especially when it comes to these subjects, this sustainability, this girl, what's good with your carbon footprint. Like, we really got to talk to our people in a way that resonates with them, because we need to have impact. That, whatever it is, the traditional speak, the very serious, it is a serious matter, but that doesn't mean that we have to approach it so seriously. So
Hmm.
the comedy part is very intentional, and it is very necessary, and it's literally, as Mary Poppins would say, the teaspoon of sugar.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It helps the
Yeah.
medicine go down. I like it.
Amen. Yes, we need this medicine.
So tell me about the types of things that you grow. Like what kind of got you into gardening and what types of things do you like to grow?
I like to grow, ooh, everything, really, truly, as much as I can grow. And I tell you why.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you the answer, but I'm gonna tell
Uh-huh.
you what the growing, the wonder of it all. It really taps me directly into my inner child, because there is this sense of like bewilderment and wonder that comes over me when I see a seedling germinate. Like,
Mm.
just to know that I planted a bunch of seeds, and they typically, depending on the seed, they typically can take somewhere around like 3 to 6 days to like come out of the soil. And there's this, in the meanwhile, there's this anticipation like, oh my God, when is it coming out? And so every day I'm going to check on the seeds, it's literally taking me back to Christmas morning.
Mm. Yes.
That's how giddy I am, just to see that this thing that I planted is now, getting to this next phase of progress, and to witness the life cycle of a plant.
Mm-hmm.
That don't mean I'm bringing it all the way to harvest or whatever, because I be killing stuff.
Okay, I
But
hear you.
my favorite things to grow, obviously, are seeds. I like to
Okay.
germinate, just because there's all kinds of ways I'd explain that, but basically, I like growing seeds. Growing food was what got me into it. So the food that I like to grow is cucumber. I like to grow tomato, but if I'm honest, I haven't really had like a really poppin' tomato harvest.
Yeah, me
And
too.
so I have a bucket list of things that I want to grow, if you're interested, but we'll come back to that. But I like to grow cucumber. I like to grow things that I like to propagate. And it's
Mm.
still growing, but I need to make
Mhm.
that distinction that I love just as much as I love growing planting seeds and watching them grow. I like to be able to take a piece of a plant and put it in whatever soil or whatever I'm gonna put it in and see it come to life again. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a vampire. You know how like you gotta die and then be reborn.
Yes,
So me and my analogies, I'll take you there, okay?
I like it.
But with propagation, that was the practice that actually made me feel it activated my green thumb. That's the term that I use. Because there's a specific plant, the coleus plant, that is a very basic plant. Everybody's familiar with it. Whether you know what it is or what it looks like or not, just Google it, you'll see. And you'll be like, oh yeah, I know her. And there's so many varieties. I started my journey in Florida, and I remember just getting some coleus. You can buy them very inexpensively. They basically give them away, depending on like if they're about to die and stuff. You know, you go
Mhm,
rescue plants from the nursery or whatever. And
mhm,
so, me being a beginner and also coming into it with very little funds, barely any funds, really. It can be an expensive hobby depending on how you go about it, and that's kind of also a misconception when it comes to access. But, we can talk about that if you want. But I'm going to stay to your question. But I found some coleus and I was drawn to it. And I don't know how, but I just ended up like breaking off a piece, or maybe it accidentally happened. I don't know. But intuitively, I remember sticking it into mud. I was in Florida during like a rainy season. And so I was like, I'm going to stick this in here and just see what happens. And a few days later, it was like wilted, but a few days later, it had sprung back. And you can
mm.
tell if you've had experience with the plant, especially with propagation, and seeing it looks like it might be about to die, but then it's like the roots will literally they'll pop out, and in that wet soil was what drew the roots out. And I just kind of figured out all this stuff all at once. I just very much felt like a scientist and still felt like that inner child was being stimulated. And so that was the plant that made me say, wow, I could grow stuff. I really could do this. I'm going to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think just having that first success, even if it's a small success, because a lot of people I notice feel like, oh, I don't have a green thumb. I can never grow anything.
Don't
And
play
I'm
yourself.
like, but it's so easy,
Hmm.
you know? I mean, sure, there's trials and there are some hard parts, but honestly, like just getting started, all you got to do is put it in the sun and put some water on that bitch, okay? Like
Hallelujah.
you're and it will grow,
Yeah,
you know?
propagate that hoe. That's what I like to say. And
Exactly.
to your point, to all you green thumb deniers out there, I want to tell you this. There is literally at this very moment a 6-year-old in the state that you are in of Georgia, a
Yes.
6-year-old, the youngest certified farmer. This is a little black girl. We real proud of
Wow.
her. Kendall Ray Johnson, the
That's
youngest black
amazing.
farmer in the state of Georgia. Now, if she could be a whole ass farmer out here,
Come on.
then you can figure something out. Okay.
Exactly.
Go to her website or
Exactly.
something, child, but
Right.
you can grow.
Yeah.
Kids can grow. You can grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to what you were saying about access, how gardening can be expensive, but what has been your experience with making it more cost effective?
I had so many hacks. I
Mm-hmm.
am extremely resourceful. And so I immediately applied that to my situation where I knew that I didn't have a lot of money. And I'm going to tell you something, I don't even really be saying this that much, but I'm going to keep it all the way gutter with y'all. There were times I got into houseplants and I became a collector, and it just literally kind of took over my life. I kind of literally I got discouraged from growing vegetables or whatever, growing food, because that didn't go as I planned for it to go. So I ended up just, getting into houseplants. It started with succulents, and I was in Florida, which I call plant candy land. They're everywhere.
Mm,
They're in everybody's yard. People don't even care.
yeah.
And so that was one of my hacks was I would drive down the street and find a blighted property, and I would survey to see if there was a plant in that yard that I wanted, and I would have my shovel and I would go get those plants out of the yard. Okay, I
Not a
would do
shovel.
that. I am a guerrilla gardener to the core. I could literally do a book on this. I need to
Wow.
hit some publishers up, by the way. But yo, so that's one of my super guerrilla tactics. Here's
Wow.
another one. Do not recommend this. Don't try this at home.
Mm.
But what I did, when I would get like a little extra $30, $40, I would go to a big box store. I would purchase a plant that I particularly wanted. I would take it to my house, take a few of those little pups, the little babies out, and just kind of split it up. And I would get what I wanted, put the soil back to make it look like it did when I bought it, and I would take it back to the store and get my money back.
No.
I wanted them damn plants. I wasn't stealing, technically, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've evolved. I can afford the plants now, but if
Oh my
you
gosh.
really want it, you know what I'm saying? It's just a
Yes.
testament to the fact that if something is that important to you, you're going to
Hmm.
find a way to get it. And I
Yeah.
can tie it straight into the plants. Plants are resilient. They're going to find a way to get the sun that they need. They will stretch and bend themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Everybody knows about cactus and how it's resilient in the way that it has the ability to store water
Yes.
in times of drought. And so I had to get it how I lived. I wanted to live this plant life, and I didn't have the end, so I did what I had to do.
Hey.
That's a few of my tricks. You know what I'm saying? And of
Right.
course, propagation is
Yes.
free plants. You buy one plant. Let's say I decided not to take it back to the stove. I could figure out a way to create more plants from that one plant that I got. Or,
Hmm.
even sometimes being at the store and taking a little snip or taking a little piece of, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Not everybody do it, but that's a big debate in the plant community, which is why y'all be taking plant pieces out the store or off the floor or whatever. Mind your business, first of all. Okay. Some people do it for sport, and I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the people who really want a plant but don't have access. Because
Hmm.
to your point, to answer the question, that access, it's not there for everybody, and it
Right.
should be. Plants should be free. Like
Right.
we the
Yeah.
ones that put value on them and decided to commodify them.
That's
So
true.
who's really
That's
the problem?
right. Right. Yeah. Hey, those are some crafty ways to get those plants, girl.
I did what I had to do.
I like it. So let's go back to your gardening adventures. I want to know more about what's on your like dream plant list or like gardening list.
Yes. Oh, I love this question because
Hmm.
I like to, imagine and ideate. But my that's my bucket list that you're asking about.
Yes.
It's sunflowers, okay?
Okay.
It's like really tall sunflowers with flowers that are bigger than my head. Okay, like 6, 7, 8 foot tall sunflowers of all colors. I just want a field of sunflowers.
Yes.
Another field that I want is, I can't remember. I just was reminded the other day. Whatever that purple flower that was in the color purple.
Mm. Mhm.
Remember when I was in that field? You
Mhm.
are a millennial
Mhm.
black woman, so if you haven't seen the color purple, I don't have mercy for you. I truly don't. Um, I will judge you harshly.
Oh
Um,
no.
but in that movie, there was a scene, the iconic scene where Celie and Nettie, they got back together, or it was Suge was out there. I don't remember all of it because I haven't seen it in a minute, but I just remember that field.
Yeah.
And once I became interested in growing things and started thinking, imagining what I would like to grow in that way, I was like, wow, I would love to not only grow a field of those, but I would like to recreate that seed. You
Right.
know,
That'd be
it's
amazing.
really for the culture. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I feel like Oprah would help me with that. So Oprah,
Oh, yeah.
if you're listening, hit me up, okay? blkinthegarden.com. Hello at blkinthegarden.com. So let's just put that out there. It's manifest.
Yes.
Um, what else? Okay, a pantry garden. Just to get
Okay.
into the growing food part again. One of the things that
Hmm.
I recognized early in the game of getting started with growing food was it felt like a superpower.
Oh, yeah.
It really did like literally activate my planeteer. And so I was like, wow, the neighborhood that I was living in was, it wasn't like particularly like the ghetto, but it was very much adjacent to it.
Hmm.
And I just have always had a large heart and a service heart. So one of the first things I tried to figure out was like, okay, well, if I can grow food, then that means I can like feed people. Yo, how do I do that? And unfortunately, because of the circumstances of my life where I have not ever like truly been in one place long enough to just really get a garden going for multiple seasons. That's
Yeah.
not something I've been able to do like, in my personal space. So it ties into all of my life aspirations of, okay, let me get myself stabilized. Housing instability, unfortunately, is something that I'm dealing with. I'm not struggling because I find a way, y'all. I told y'all I'm gonna find a way, but I'm dealing with it, and once I get that situated, then I will certainly find a space where I can set up all of these beds and a community garden style situation, but also being very intentional about growing a certain amount of food specifically for giving away and for
Yes.
educational purposes. Like I really want to have host an educational gardening space. So that is high on my list, and just a lot of things. I want to do business things with plants. I want to, help empower people who don't fully believe in their green thumb, but I can only do so many things. We about to talk
Right.
about the tree project, and I have this podcast going on, and these kids. So I'm like, y'all, I'll get there, but
Yeah.
it's a matter of needing to source a significant amount of resources in order to make all these things happen. And one of those resources would be help. I can't do this all
Yes.
by myself.
Yes, exactly. Right. One of the great things about the community garden that I'm at is that they do kind of have that type of thing where half of the garden is for, like the raised beds and people can rent those out. And then
Mm,
the other half they donate to like local food banks.
mm,
So, so it's a great way to both. They don't really do educational things so much.
mm.
They just don't really have the resources for
Yeah,
that, but it's a great way to provide for your community, and then also have the opportunity to also have people come in and plant their own things and learn. Like that's how I got a lot of my growing education, was just by being in there with the more experienced gardeners who are
yes.
there and just kind of learning from them.
That's very helpful. And that speaks
Yeah.
to the intergenerationality. I had to
Yeah.
slow that all the way down because I'm like, listen, I'm going to get it out. The
Yes, you got it.
intergenerationality of gardening that I feel like we don't consider that enough, I guess, where it's like,
Hmm.
we have ancestral knowledge or remembrance or whatever, but at the same time, so many people who share their story with me about how they learned about gardening. Generally, it will start with an elder. It will start with like a grandparent, or I
Right.
remember this, with my grandma, granddaddy, mom, auntie, whoever. And I'm like, yeah, there's something to that. That's it's like the passing of the torch. We have this wisdom, this knowledge, and passing it on is it's a legacy, truly.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you got to
All
learn
right.
from those people. That's that helps me. It's a
Yes,
blessing.
yes.
Yes.
All right, so now I want to talk about your newest project, the Underground Arborist. Tell us, tell us everything about that.
Ooh, yes, all the things. So the Underground Arborist is it is newly the what is it, the 501c3 nonprofit arm of the Black in the Garden podcast, because Black in the Garden um also recently, as of last year, um formed an LLC. We formed the LLC to really be about this, podcast business life, right? And so, in recognizing the the new assignment, that's what it is. I was going to say that's what I'm calling it, but what it is I just recognize that I need to go and plant some trees, plant a lot of trees. And so I just recognize, I'll just go ahead and give you like the origin story of it. I I had a conversation with a homegirl who is also a podcaster, Jade, who hosts the Black Plant Chick podcast.
Hmm.
And I sponsored that podcast, by the way. It's sponsored by Black in the Garden. I mean, listen,
Nice.
we be doing stuff. So we're really cool friends, and I have been a bit nomadic over, the past couple months, just because of circumstances literally beyond my control. And that, is connected to the housing instability, but we're doing our best. And so I was telling her, oh, and here's a fun fact. My house plants, when I left my last dwelling where was able to have house plants,
Hmm.
I was like, listen, these plants are, I'm not giving them away. I want my plants. Let me see who can take care of them for me. And guess who's taking care of them? One
Is
of your
it?
previous guests.
Oh, Ashley Renee.
It's Ashley. Hey, Ashley. Ashley is
Hey.
my current plant sitter. Okay, she's taking care of all my plant babies, and so there's that. But she's while they're in her care, they're obviously I'm missing them, and so
Hmm.
I'm talking to Jade, and I'm like, Jade, like I really miss my plant babies, and she was like, Girl, what if you planted a tree everywhere you went? And I was like, What if I did that? But
Yeah.
that was the first time that concept even occurred to me with her mentioning it. Um, so a few weeks later, it was New Year's Eve, literally. I found out about Hala Sidibe, who
Hmm.
is this black man who last year ran across the United States in 84 days. And I was like,
Wow.
it just resonated with me in such a way. I was like, I want to make an impact like that. Like, you don't just do something like that without it inspiring people and getting people like excited and wanting to support what you got going on. So I'm like, what
Hmm.
does that look like for me, for the host of Black in the Garden, for somebody who really loves plants and wants to connect Black people to it? And her words just, rang back in my mind, and I said, yo, what if I could like plant a tree kind of like Hela, but like in every state? So
Yeah.
that's how
Wow.
it formulated. But there was also like this ancestral kind of like calling on me from the conversation that I had with Ashley. Once again, she was on Black in the Garden on season 2, which was in 2020, and I remember because I know that she's like that eco girl and
Hmm.
that sustainability girl. So I was like,
Hmm.
Ashley, what you know about Wangari Maathai? And she was like, Oh my God, I never heard of her. So we had a conversation about Wangari Maathai on my podcast on that episode, and we discussed what her legacy is that she left, which is planting trees. A black woman, a
Yeah.
Kenyan woman in
Wow.
Africa, was responsible for planting over 20 million trees,
Wow.
organizing. She didn't plant them herself, but
Yeah.
Wangari organized the planting of over 20 million trees, mainly by women, in places like churches and schools and community spaces. And it's her organization is called the Greenbelt Movement, which is still active to this day by her predecessors. And she she won the Nobel Peace Prize, y'all.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
when I found out about her, I was blown away. And that was just kind of like tucked in. I felt like I, on some level, in some kind of way, it's like I met her,
Mm,
and so having that conversation with Ashley was very meaningful. And so it was like all of these things just kind of came back to me in that moment on New Year's Eve when Hilab made his impact on me and recognizing, okay, he could do that. He literally ran with both of his feet from sea to shining sea. So I'm like,
yes.
yes, I could do something that is big and impactful and ambitious like that as well. And so that's when we started planning for the tour. Fortunately, I am in residence currently with my good friend who is also an executive business coach, and she
Mm,
is now the executive director of the Underground Arborist nonprofit organization, and we are currently actively sourcing, sponsorships and stuff because you need resources to be able to go and
yes.
do this. But
Right.
we are going to plant native female trees in every state, and
That's
for so
amazing.
many reasons. But I will let you go with the follow-up questions because I can just ramble about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just amazed with this project. Like that's so incredible and I love that you've taken inspiration from, fellow black people who have, done something similar and you're just kind of making it into your own thing. Like
Yeah.
that's so incredible. I'm
And
so
there's
excited for you.
Thank you so much. There's one other inspiration that
Mhm.
is noteworthy, and that is Jessica Nabongo. I remember finding out about her on my favorite podcast, The Read, and
Mhm.
I remember she was like discussed as their Black excellence subject, and they were like, "Yo, so there's this Black woman who recently she set the record. I'm not sure if it was a record, but she became noteworthy because of setting foot on every continent in the world. This is
Mm.
Jessica Nabongo." And I was like, what? That's crazy. I'm just listening.
Yeah.
I'm having a fun time, as the nature of that, of the read is. But
Yeah.
that also stuck with me just to know, like, there's the representation, y'all. We cannot say this enough. That's why you do what you do. That's why this is Sustainable Brown Girl. Not just like, hey, it's a sustainability show and I'm just talking about stuff. No, you're intentional about saying, hey, I'm here. I'm Black. And I need y'all to know that we do these things. We care about these things. We care about the earth. We care about sustainability. And
Yes.
so that representation for me, and seeing a Black woman who has won a Nobel Peace Prize from planting all these trees all over the place, and this Black man who has been very ambitious and, literally like sacrificing his whole body. Like, he experienced racism on the way at
Wow.
one point, or maybe one, but I did some reading about him. He was stopped by a very hostile white police officer who had a lot of questions for him, and probably did not mean well for him. And
Mm.
there was someone pulled up on him. Some other white people pulled up, and they were like, "Oh my God, we love what you're doing," and that kind of de-escalated that
Oh,
situation.
wow.
And you know
Yeah.
what I mean when I say
Yeah.
de-escalate, because Black
Yeah.
people are really out here in danger being in these streets. So for a white man to do that, okay, yeah, sure, he could do that without anybody blinking at him. But when you really think about a Black man running across the United States, you got to know there was some people with some questions, and you know that
For
that cop
sure.
was one of them. So I don't
Right.
take that lightly. I don't take that for granted, and
Yeah.
that's a part of, a huge part of that inspiration there as well. But between Wangari and Hala and Jessica Nabongo, I'm like, y'all did those things, and y'all made me feel like I could do the things too. So I'm gonna do them.
Yes. Yes, yes. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed, so excited for your journey. I think it's going to be great. And I can see, just you having a big impact on other people, just like when Gary and, Jessica and the other guy, I
Hala.
forget his name. Yes,
Yes, yes.
that
It's
they made on you.
HELLAH. So
Okay.
that's how to say
Yes.
it. Hmm.
There you go,
We
girl.
doing it.
I love it. So we are coming to the end of this interview. And my last question for you is, what does being a sustainable brown girl or black girl mean to you?
It means, I mean, at the core, it's the sustainability, it's the earth stewardship. It is very much like what it means to me is I care about the earth. It doesn't mean that I go about it in a way that is like perfect and faultless, because it's actually kind of impossible to be like the perfect sustainable person. But I am someone who cares about the earth and being a good steward, but I am also my very black, authentic self. And I'm bringing all of that to the conversations that I have, as that is my main source of how you know me, or how, oh, my contribution, my work. That's a more specific way, accurate way to put that, is knowing who I am and knowing what I care about, and having these conversations and having impact because I am who I am, this black woman who has made this my priority and made this literally my ministry, and going forth especially with this planting trees. It's not just because I saw these other predecessors that I talked about and was like, oh, that was cute, I could do that too because that's cute. No, there's conversations that need to happen. I need to be my whole black ass self, and I need to be my funny self, because we need to bring all of that to these conversations. That's a big part of what's missing from conversations when we're talking about sustainability and stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how we can be better stewards, and how we can, try to reverse the effects of climate change and stuff like that. We're just being so serious, and we're just being so like crunchy about it, and it doesn't make everybody feel like they have access to it. It doesn't make my people feel like, it's like, who was you even talking to? You know how we do. Like, who
Yep.
was you talking to? I know you're not talking to me, because it doesn't feel like you're talking. It's not resonating. That's what
Right.
we mean when, that's what I meant when I said it like that. So I'm very much like, it's me. I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to you because I'm speaking like we speak on the everyday, like we
Mhm.
at the barbershop, like we at the beauty salon, like we kikiing on Twitter. That's how we're going to talk about this, because that's the way to keep the conversations lively and engaging, and that's how we make the impact that we need to make. So that's what it means to me.
Yes, yes, girl, you are definitely making an impact and making it so much more accessible and relatable to be in the garden and being your authentic black selves. I love it.
Period. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure having you on, and let everyone know where they can find you online.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing me on, because this was so fun.
Yeah.
This was so fun, and I just felt so welcome and seen here. So that is everything. But as far as how you can find me online, go to blkinthegarden.com. That is the source of all the Black in the Garden stuff. But there is a link there at the top where it says like plant a tree or something. And that links you to undergroundarborist.org, and that is the page that represents, the underground arborist movement as it is getting ready to take place. We're going to have our first tree planting for the 2022 in on February 19th. I don't want to like date too much. You know how it is with podcasts. You don't want
Yeah,
to say dates
right.
like that. But it's happening this February. It's kicking off. And so you can also, it links to all my socials, but I'll just say them. Instagram is my main source if you want to be very current in the, kind of like in real time almost, with my stories there on Instagram. At Black in the Garden is the handle. Twitter, I've been tweeting a little bit more. I'm like,
Nice.
hey y'all, I tweet, and so that's Black in the Garden. I think I'm pretty sure it's at Black in the Garden. Sometimes the name is taken, and so I got to like take a
Right.
letter out. And there's also I'm not even really going to say TikTok because it's not there yet, but
Okay.
I'm excited about it getting there. And I also have a YouTube where I will be updating in the near future. my journey of planting trees, because the documenting of it is also very significant. So
Right.
on all those social channels, I'm sure you're going to list that in your
Hmm.
episode notes. So y'all
Yep.
just read the notes. We're
Yes.
podcasters, so we know.
Yes.
That's one of the fun things about talking to another podcaster. Is like we get the mechanics. Y'all check the episode notes. It's all there, all the things that you need, and
Hmm.
definitely subscribe and follow and support the movement truly, because like I said, I need the resources. So go to undergroundarborist.org and see how you can make your donation, or let us know if you need a tree planted or want a tree planted in your community. We are still sourcing some locations for our tour. And also, if you are like a company or organization and you would like to partner, we sure need those. Okay. So go ahead and become a partner. So I need to say all those things in order to shamelessly promote myself
I
and to
love it.
answer that, which is, find me in all those places. Push all the buttons.
Yes. Please
Mhm.
go follow Colah B Tawkin. You will not be disappointed.
Anytime.
And thanks again for joining us.
Yes. Thank you for having me. You know what I say when I'm done? Love, light,
Mhm.
and soil.
There you go.